Moji Hunponu-Wusu, President, Woodhall Capital Group. I think the first one I fully attended was 2024, the ASIS 2024 in Eco Hotel in Lagos, Nigeria. And it was so insightful. First of all, Woodhall Capital have been partners with Sterling Bank for a while, Sterling One Foundation certainly for a few years. But last year I was fully present, physically, emotionally, mentally. I wanted to be there. Woodhall Capital Foundation is an exhibitor. And I think we got a lot of feedback. It wasn't a waste of space and time. Our people certainly came back with a lot of inquiries, and we've been able to see a few things through. What stood out for me on a personal level and from a generic level as a firm was that I was invited to speak on a panel about education. And from that meeting, we met the Nigerian Governors Forum, and we started speaking about some collaboration from the foundation on education with the Nigerian Governors Forum. And today is the 1st of May 2025. We're in advanced talks and signed an MOU to be partners. They've chosen us on the steering committee for the Nigeria Governors Forum conference later on this year. But beyond that, by meeting them at the ASIS platform last year, we've then gone on to be mandated to raise funding for all 36 states of the country. So the 36 states would bring transactions that they feel would need international funding, and then we would take them on a roadshow to London and Dubai to interact with investors. Surely, when you're talking about foundation, and you're talking about global foundations that are actually looking at impacting the continent, you're not only talking about giving and NGOs and grants and all of those things. You're actually talking about how all these things cascade to the bigger picture with firms like Woodhall Capital that deal with global capital funding. There's space for us here to give, and there's space for visibility on our project. And that certainly was a highlight of ASIS 2024 for us. Platforms like ASIS matter because most people's perception of African philanthropy or African foundations is that we go to ask and we go begging. But it is not the case. Africans give. Our culture is a giving culture. And platforms like this actually accentuate the philanthropic efforts of a lot of Africans. And I'm sure that when you speak to ACEs and the co-conveners of ACEs, it's highlighting that they are African foundations that give, and that they give globally. Woodhall Capital gives not only on the continent, we give globally. And giving platforms to foundations like Woodhall Capital Sterling One Foundation is so important. On an elevated level, after the ASIS conference last year, we're invited to the United Nations. I actually went on that from an invitation by Sterling One Foundation. And just sitting in that room in New York, being able to show that the local African global foundations that are empowering other people around the world was actually enlightening even for those who are in there. Because people think African foundations only impact issues on the continent. No, African foundations impact global needs. And we're able to, where we hear about them and where we have the affordability, we're able to impact across the world. People don't know that, but ASIS was able to give us the platform to convey that information. I think historically, Sterling Bank has been a sort of incubator for Woodhall Capital. And they've carried us all the way along the journey. When we opened our first office, they were there. When we opened our first office in London, they were there. When we opened our first office in Dubai. As a matter of fact, when I opened the Woodhall Capital Foundation, they were the first people I went to. And I said, I think we should do a bit of giving to back what we do on the funding side of things. And they were so supportive. I sit in the offices of the various MDs they've had, and a lot of our conversation is about giving. So it's only natural that not only are they funding partners, and not only are they corporate clients of ours, they're spiritual partners. And they've given us this platform to show that the relationship is not transactional. Partnership for them obviously means that they carry you along the way, both in the corporate sense of it and even in the spiritual, and the ethos, and obviously our values are aligned. So I'm asking myself, are we doing something this year? And the answer goes to show, if I have been pulled into rooms, if Woodhall Capital has been pulled into rooms where we know, if we're being humble, that we wouldn't have otherwise had those elevated conversations from the ASIS 2024. And I'm looking forward to who else I could or should be meeting in 2025. Beyond the transactional side of it is to give visibility to the work that we do on continent and other places in the world. I'll be there. And I think that any foundation that is thinking of beyond what they do and beyond what they know, and what are those global foundations doing? They're giving you that access into those rooms where you can have global conversations about what your foundation is. Not only to look for grants, not only to find partners to fund you, but to have partners that can have elevated mindset on what philanthropy is. Be there, I'll be there, and I hope I'll be sitting on a panel this year. Be there, let's have a conversation. How can we take the African global foundations around the world? Thank you.